Is it harder to talk about a team that's winning than losing? If that's the case, we should probably just stop talking right now. The Edmonton Oilers are near the top of the NHL standings here at the end of a road trip. They've played very well against their Pacific Division opponents heading into a game against Colorado. An outlier being the game against the LA Kings, but everything is clicking for the Edmonton Oilers right now. McDavid and Draisaitl are the top two scorers in the league. Their defense is airtight. Goaltending has been terrific for them for the most part. There are a couple of holes that the Oilers might want to address if they really are playoff contenders, never mind contenders for the Stanley Cup, and that could be in the forward ranks. Jim Matheson.
Yes, a general manager always has to juggle a few balls at the trading deadline. If you've got a team that looks like they're going to make the playoffs and not just go out in the first round, I think the players are looking at the general manager and saying, well, do something for us here so we don't go out in the first round. Get us a couple of players if you can without selling the farm. And the owner of the team, Daryl Cates, is probably saying the same thing. If we can get into 2 rounds of the playoffs, that's some extra money for me. So they do need I still think they need a left wing on the second line who can play consistently on the second line if James Neal plays right wing with Nugent Hopkins. And they need a third line right shot center. Not taking anything away from Gaetan Haas, who's done a pretty nice job in his first year in the NHL. They like his skating. He's faster than some people. Like the fact that he's a smart player. But he's a third line right shot center who wins 39% of his faceoffs. And you would like a third line center who shoots right, who wins 55 to 60% of the faceoffs. Not 39. So first year in the league, you're usually not very good on faceoffs because the players you're going against are much stronger. So they need those two things. Whether you want to give up a first-round pick for a rental, I don't see it. A second-round pick and a prospect, perhaps. Jean-Gabriel Pageau from Ottawa is a right shot center, but 15 teams might be looking at him because he's a skilled player. He's not very old. You need a second-line player along the lines of a Gus Nyquist, who used to be in Detroit with Ken Holland, but not making that kind of money necessarily because you still have to pay him for the last 6 weeks of the season. So that sort of player you can plug in, I think, as a second-line forward. But you've got 3 months to look at the teams and see, okay, you guys are making the playoffs, you guys are not making the playoffs, and here's what we'll give up for a rental.
I mean, I imagine general managers are always shopping and looking at rosters of other teams and wondering who might be, looking to deal closer to the trade deadline, which is ways away. We're only a third of the way through the season. We're talking about another, 30 games before we're at the trade deadline. But Ken Holland, obviously, he must have his eye on some teams who you might think probably aren't going to be there, even at this early hour.
Well, I mean, like
what would work?
A team like LA.
Sure, Toffoli.
But he's a right winger, I think. But I guess you could move James Neal over to the left side. He would be a possibility. Like I said, there's only so many teams right now for sure out of it. And Ottawa is not one of them. Ottawa's in a 500 team. Now, LA is a poor team. I think Minnesota would trade players because Bill Guerin's a new general manager and it's looking like we're not going anywhere. I think he would probably trade. But there's not 6 or 7 teams right now you can go to and says, okay, you guys are not making the playoffs, so what do you give me for this? So you can plant the seeds now. So I think Ken will be waiting until sometime into January. They've already had their the first pro scouting meetings on the road trip. They had them in Las Vegas for a couple of days. So they've gone over all the rosters and I'm sure and thought, well, what about this player? What about that player? But it's also preliminary right now that you don't want to, if you're Ken Holland, you got a good thing going. You don't want to give up too much of your own team. You will give up something, a farm team defenseman perhaps that you don't see as good as Ethan Bear or Caleb Jones, and you're not trading Evan Bouchard, so it doesn't leave a lot of them. I guess it would leave William Lagesson, but unless NHL teams see Lagesson play games in the NHL, you're still trading a minor league defenseman, so that makes it difficult.
There has to be a consideration of salary as well. I mean, the Oilers are relatively close to the cap and trying to fit another salary in. I'm not sure how much Tyler Toffoli makes, for example, or a player that is worthy of playing
He
top
makes
six.
about $3 million.
Yeah. How much would that cost you?
Well, like I said, it's another story. I mean, they already have 48 contracts now too. So to add a player and not give up anybody on your 50-man list means you got 49 players, and that doesn't leave you much wiggle room either. In terms of another deal, you'd like to move somebody off your who's definitely got a contract, as opposed to, even if they're playing in the minors, as opposed to just draft picks. You want to move a player for a player if you can. And I don't, like I said, I just don't see a first round pick, but a second round pick, considering the Oilers might be good, that might be, number 50. 45 or something like that. It's not the great, where the Oilers are usually picking the second round, which is usually in the top 5, which is almost like a first rounder. So if they give up a second rounder, I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world. And they do have prospects here, there, and everywhere. So they have a good defenseman playing in college too at Yale, Phil Kemp. He's hasn't played pro yet, but he played really well in the World Junior, so he would be another player that teams might look for.